every spot, and I'm telling you, every spot from New York Harbor down past the Klondike, out, that's my area, in that area, out east Long Island. Every spot's got a tide and a wind direction that turns that spot on. And every year it's different. Some years, a north wind with an incoming tide to light them up on other years it's an outgoing tide on a south wind. It's always different. The only way you can figure that out is to fish it and fish it and fish it. Most of my waters, shallow 65 feet, 85 feet, 105 feet. I don't fish sinkers, I fish bucktails. Gulp's critical, fresh bait's critical. I'm gonna give you one of the secrets, John. Sabiki rigs. When I get on a piece of structure, while my guys are fishing, I'll drop down a sabiki rig. I want to see what's living on that piece of structure. Could be burgalls, baby ling, sea bass, sand porgies, whatever I can catch that's legal to use for bait, I will put on a hook. Gulp, although it's expensive, gulp, if you're not using gulp, you're missing the boat. You can fish all the other stuff out there, and I'm not going to say anything bad about all the other products. Gulp's critical for fish. Just as critical as catching fresh bait. Gulp and a piece of fresh bait, a strip, a piece of fluke belly. If you can catch mackerel, there's been a lot of mackerel out over the years. Mackerel strips, I don't do really well with sea robins. Squid, when squid is there, when squid's around, squid's a killer. If you can catch squid, live squid, and they come in on a reef in the summer on the moons to spawn, that's a critical bait as well. Drift speed for me, for the big fluke, 0.9, 11, 13. That's about the max for the big fluke to chase. With that being said, fishing, everyone's used to drifting, dropping your line and drifting and letting the line out. You gotta fish into the current. Fish as heavy as possible with the bucktail, as heavy as possible that you can feel the bottom. Sometimes you're only gonna get 3 bumps. You're gonna get 1 bump, 2 bumps. Vertical, that's when you're gonna get your hit, when you're vertical. And then you go underneath the boat. You gotta reel it in, do it again. Color, everyone has, I have a lot of steady customers. Guys fish brown, they fish blue, they fish pink. As long as, in my mind, as you're fishing white bucktail, white's the color. White will work at all times. I mentioned gulp before. Gulp, just about mandatory. And anybody that knows gulp, there's all different kinds of color. There's always a sweet color that's gonna work. Pink, I give a couple of hints. Pink shine will work. When it's squid are on a reef, you can't find a better color. Pink shine. In the summer, mantis shrimp spawn, full moon in July. Does everyone know what a mantis shrimp is? New penny. When they're on mantis shrimp, new penny. Slay them. Some years it's nuclear chicken. A couple years ago they came out with an orange, a salmon color, blue and gold. Fish whatever you're comfortable with. Structure. I gotta fish structure. If I'm not snagging, if I got four or five guys fishing, ladies fishing, if somebody's not fast on a bottom on one of my drifts, I miss the spot. There's gonna be some donations made. You gotta fish the structure. There's so many net boats over the years now, the draggers, all the soft spots. I'm not gonna say the fluke don't live there, but the population is way down compared to the structure because the commercial guys can't get to it. Tackle, braid is mandatory. You want to bring your own stuff on my boat? If it's not braid, we're not fishing. A super fast rod where you can pick up your bucktail and not use the parabolic arc on your rod to eat it. You got to pick up your bucktail and drop it. That's critical as well. Strips, I'll use strips up to 15 inches long. If I can get bluefish, 2 or 3 pound bluefish, I'm filleting them from the gills to their tail. Same thing with the fluke. I can fillet in New York, I can fillet a fluke, I can leave that rack, it's legal. I want a 15-inch strip. Another thing I'll tell you is with the long strips, I'll put a stinger or 2 stingers on the bait. And to tie the stinger, it's about a 16-inch piece of braid, 80-pound braid, double the line. Bear with me with this and pay attention to it. Double the line, go through the eye of the hook, down to the shank, wind over the shank 6 times, and then go back out the eye. That knot will never come out, and you can adjust it. Sometimes you have to do that for every time you change your bait. You have to just put another stinger on. But this way you catch your short bites.
Say that again?
Take a length of braid, 15, 16 inches, double it. So it's 8 inches. Run it through the eye of the hook, down the shank, wrap the shank with the remainder of the braid 6 times down toward the bend, and then back out the eye of the hook. And there's your knot. And that'll hold. And there's your stinger hook for your long bait. Now I'll fish a piece of strip. I'll put a gulp on my bucktail. I'll put a strip on, and then I'll tie the stinger hook on top of that. So I'm fishing gulp and a fresh piece of bait. I also like to fish a high hook. Depending on how fast the drift is, the current, usually 16 to 20 inches above the bucktail. Just a number 4, number 6 offset hook. I like VMC owners. Gamakatsus, I find Gamakatsus will snap on you. Never snapped one on the fluke, but snap a lot of them on hook and fish with the Gamakatsus. I try to shy away from them. VMC, Eagle Claw, Mustad, they all make a great hook. That's more than adequate for hooking a fluke. I talked about the rods, super fast or the tip fast. I'll be in the Shimano booth. If anyone wants to come, I could show you the knot, and I could show you the rods that we use. Setting the hook with the braid, you gotta, this year guys, when you're out there fishing, take a hook, just take a plain hook and try to stick it through the top of a fluke's mouth and see how much effort it takes to stick that hook through its mouth. So you gotta really slam it. When you get that bite, you gotta slam it. Swing, if you don't hit it, maybe you'll come back. But if you don't swing, very seldom you're gonna hook these fish. The big fluke, they're very lazy. Like you're not gonna see me run a marathon. These big fluke, they're not gonna chase your bait. They like it very slow, a very slow presentation, especially with the long strip. The strip's going through the water like that. You're bouncing it, you're bouncing it, you're bouncing it. The big fluke, they'll give you a thump, they'll hit it, they'll take it out of your hand if you're not expecting it. But if you don't set that hook, it's almost like they could spit it out immediately. Big mouth. Structure. I consider anything on the ocean that's not flat. Structure. Doesn't have to be rocks, although rocks is structure. Mussel beds is structure. Sand hills. Different undulations on the bottom. It goes high. It goes from 65 feet to 55 feet down to 85 feet. That's slope. That's structure. You have to fish structure. Current. Fluke like current. You're going to go out there one day and there's just no current, there's no drift. You can work your tail off. These fish just aren't active. They're more active in a current, I find. Channel edges, channel bottoms, lighthouses. I use a star. I go out, I start my morning off, I go out. I don't make a decision on where I'm going to fish until I see what the wind is blowing when I come around Sandy Hook. When I see the direction of the wind, I make a decision where I'm going. East, southeast, or south. Sometimes north. New York Harbor's full of current. Always got current. Great structure, New York Harbor. Not a lot of fish, but the fish you catch up there are big. Big. 8 pounds. Solid fish up there, but they're big. if we're targeting big fish or tournament fishing, I'm looking for little pieces of structure that boats can't get on and pound it and pound it and pound it. I have the luxury of being out there 7 days a week, so I can figure out a spot that's catching fish or it's building or the bait's there and figure out a pattern. If I was doing it once a week, or some guys only get to go out on Saturday, it takes its toll on you. It's trying. Just because you're not catching fish there this morning doesn't mean the fish aren't there. They might need a different tide, might need a different wind direction. I started out by saying wind direction is critical. All my spots, I determine where I'm fishing by wind direction. Not temperature, not tide, wind direction, and I know where I'm gonna go fish with that.
How do you make that decision? What are you looking for in the wind direction in the structure?
Trial and error.
Okay, so is it you want the wind to be next to it, or directly into it?
It's always different. A lot of the reefs, you fish, sometimes the fish are on the structure, sometimes they're laying at the base of the structure, sometimes they're laying on the upside of the structure. What I try to do is I'll base, like this year, I won't start fluking until June. And I'll base off, one of my favorite spots is an incoming tide with the north wind. I'll go there, I got north wind incoming tide, I might not get a bite. Now I gotta figure it out. Maybe the fish are there, maybe they're not. I don't know, it's still early, it's early for the ocean bite. But wind direction, by me going out there, and I have no patience, if I can't get a bite in 10 or 15 minutes, we're picking up, we're making a run, I'm looking. But if I can get a bite, we're gonna put together a pattern. I'm gonna figure out, because I'm always watching my fish finder, I'm always watching my trail. I lay down a trail, every drift's a different, it looks like the gay flag when I get done fishing. I got every color on my fish finder. I know exactly what drift was, yellow, pink, blue, purple, black, white, you name it. Every drift I know when I'm fishing. I can put together a pattern when I'm fishing. You catch a fish, you get snagged, you got nothing. Next drift I go up, same thing. 2 fish, snags, nothing. My third drift, nothing, fish, snag. So the fish are right there. That's it. Yeah, right? It's tough. I put together a pattern. Once I'm able to put together a pattern where the fish are laying on a drift, on the structure, in the structure, away from the structure, and I'm in 82 feet of water with a west wind, I look around, and at this stage in my life now, I got 1,000 spots. I look around the next couple of miles, what do I have that's exactly like where I'm catching them here in case we burn this spot up? You might only get 2 or 3 good drifts and that spot's dried up, you pull those fish off. With that, also I find I'm looking for big fish. If I'm catching shorts, the short life is a killer, and especially if you're making the investment in the Gulp, they steal your tails, you can't catch any fresh bait. I've never put together like, you caught 10 shorts, you caught 8 shorts, you caught 15 shorts, and now we got an 8-pounder, 10-pounder. A lot of times those big fish, they don't live with them, and they certainly don't feed with them. So if I'm catching a lot of shorts, I go looking around. If I'm in a good spot that's got good structure and I'm comfortable with my conditions, wind-wise, I'll stay there, I'll fish it. If we're not catching fish, that's good. We're not looking to fill the cooler, we're looking to catch that one fish.
So you're saying the big fish don't hang with the smaller?
That's what I'm saying. And that's not scientific.
Yeah.
It's just my opinion. This is what I found over the years. We never catch, all of a sudden, oh my God, look, get the net, here's a 10-pounder after we just caught 25 shorts. That's never happened with us working. It's critical for me to know my charters. Are we looking to put fillets in the freezer? Or are we looking to catch a fish of a lifetime? So if the guys at this stage, most of the guys now, they're all looking to make their personal best out there. They're working hard, fishing the bucktails, banging it, and all my guys, all my top fishermen on the boat, they don't fish into the drift. You know what I mean? They're not dragging. They're fishing this way. I'm drifting this way. They're fishing this way. 1, 2, 3. Once he gets underneath the boat, that vertical hop, that's when you're gonna get that bite. Once we start cutting underneath the boat, reel it in, do it again.
You guys that are really good at throwing up current, and you're in 80 feet of water, how light a line are they going to get it
So
down?
I have some guys that fish as light as 10-pound test braid. I'm gonna say that most of them are fishing 20. We're using the smallest bucktail possible that you can hold bottom. And most times in that water feel, it's 1.5 ounce to 3 ounce bucktail. Sometimes we have to go to 4 ounce, sometimes we have to go to 6 ounce. Sometimes we fished 8 ounces already, if I'm fishing a little different. But I try to stay with the 2 to 4 ounce, and I'm gonna give you something else to turn your 2 ounce bucktail into a 4 or 6 ounce bucktail. With an egg sinker, everybody knows what an egg sinker is? So you take a 2 ounce bucktail, thread a 2 ounce egg sinker up your line, and now tie your 2 ounce bucktail. And now you got a 4 ounce bucktail with a 2 ounce profile, which outproduces to me, a 4 ounce piece of lead, or certainly a 6 or 8 ounce piece of lead.
You leave that egg sinker right up against the bucktail?
Right up against it.
And let it just flop up and down?
It does two things. One is good. One, it knocks on the eye of the hook, and that clicking noise might be an attractor, I don't know. The other thing it does, and it's not good, is it wears out you have to really be careful, pay attention to your leader, because after a few drifts, your leader's gonna start getting frayed with that bucktail, so you're constantly cutting and fixing it. But you could change a 2 ounce bucktail to a 4 or 6 ounce bucktail with a couple of egg sinkers and never change the profile. You'll also find with the smaller bucktails, the hook size, maybe, so let's just say in general, a 4.0 or 5.0, but the hook diameter is smaller than say a 6 or 8 ounce bucktail, which makes it easier to hook the fluke. So to me, it's a home run. Most of the fish you're gonna hook, especially if you're using strip bait, most of the fish you're gonna hook on your stinger. Your stinger hook's gonna catch most of the fish. They come up from behind it, they inhale it, that stinger's gonna be in their throat or somewhere around their gills.
So
They-
which size hook are you using on the stinger?
4 to 6.0. We're tournament fishing, I've already used 8.0 and 10.0 hooks on my stinger, depending on what size bait. I don't want to take away from the action on my bait. The heavier and the bigger the hook you use on your bait, the more you're going to take away from that action. A 4 to 6.0 is plenty good.
Like a short shank?
A short shank, offset. I like an offset hook for that. Fighting a fish, when you hook the fish and you fight a fish, you set the hook, you reel down, keep that rod. I call them high stickers on a boat. They reel up. Some guys do real well with it, but I like, if I'm telling them how to do it, I want the rod straight down at the fish to fight that fish. I don't want the rod, I want you to be like attached to the reel. I don't want that rod with the super fast tip pulling every time that fish is diving to the bottom. I like to stay attached like that, real slow, reel when you can. Your drag's adjusted, that's a 40-pound test fluorocarbon leader because of the structure. The fluorocarbon's a little more durable than a mono. You're certainly not tying straight to the hook. Is there any chance to put a chip in on the TV?
What's the length of the rod? What would you suggest?
7 feet. 7 feet, because if you fish say a 7 foot compared to a 5.5 foot rod, 5.5, you gotta go like this. You gotta work it. The longer the rod, the less motion you have to do all day. The biggest motion you're gonna do is just open up the bail, flip it up, and then work it back. Tuck the rod underneath your arm, work it back.
Like medium heavy?
I like medium. I like a 7 foot, medium heavy. Depends where I fish. as far as if I'm fishing 65 feet or 105 feet.
Not reading it.
Yeah.
So what, how come you don't like the pole to bend, to take up a shot?
Because what happens with the pole that bends is when you're jigging, you're gonna go like this, and you think you're moving your bucktail on the bottom, and your bucktail's sitting there and your rod's going.
No, I mean, after you have the hook, fish hook, you said point it straight at the water, the reel.
Yeah, because I don't want that rod flexing up and down of that
Why?
fish. I don't want that, he's shaking his head. That 2-ounce piece of lead wants to come loose so bad. I don't want any extra stress on that line for him. With this way, just nice and straight down, I found that to be the highest success. The guys that fish them like this, a lot of times that fish will come halfway up and they start diving, it's pulling against the rod, they don't drop the rod, and the hook pulls out.
Is there any relationship between the size hook and the size gulp you use?
I use one size Gulp, 6-inch. Always use the 6-inch Gulp.
And what size hook?
4 to 6-0. 4 to 6-0.
Which goal, curly tail or?
Yes, what do they call it, the grub? Yep, the 6-inch grub. All different, all the different colors, my guys, they go on the gambit. For me, I would use, myself, you'd only find in my bag, new penny, pink shine. Pink shine, there's pink shine and then everything else. White and nuclear chicken. Chartreuse attracts all the little sea bass, all the little trigger fish. I'm not a chartreuse fan. Those are the colors that I use.
Do you put the gulp, always have gulp and then add live bait, or if you're using strips, do you not use gulp?
I'll put the Gulp and the strip, fresh strip. On the high hook, on my high hook, one or the other. And on the high hook, if you use a big strip will be 4 inches, fresh bait, or a whole squid. That's okay.
And with your wind, is wind against tide one of your considerations when you come around the hook and find out which way it's going?
Sometimes you have no choice, but I know there's like a 2-hour difference from down my beach or if I go out east on the New York side. So if I got the wind blowing out of the north with the incoming tide, I don't have a wind against the tide. I'm blowing across it. There's a nice reef, there's a few nice reefs out there that works out perfect, where you can fish on the inside and see if they're stacked up here on the wall, or get up on top of the wall and fish this side and see if they're sitting on a down tide side with that. You're blowing away.
I've had a
So
lot of luck on that reef, but it's just such a long ride out.
it can be
Yeah.
for some. I don't know where you come from, but it can be. But it can be worth it. Some days it's not worth it. There's some days I stand up here, I make my living taking people fishing. Believe me, there's days out there, you would think I never fished a day in my life. I just can't make it happen. It's not my customers, it's just condition-wise. The fish don't want to do their part. You just can't do it. And there's other days guys think you're a god, and the fish just, they got the memo when they bit today, that's all. It's the only thing that we did.
On the top hook, do you typically like to fish that with your strip naked, or you put in a teaser or a squid or something like a plastic?
I'm not a big fan of teasers. I have them. I tried the regular, like the bucktail teaser. I tried the squid teasers. I find that's naked, catch by themselves. You're gonna walk around the show, you're gonna see listen, during the season, we're paying $9, $10 for a bag of Gulp. There's for instance, they have the imitation Gulp, the plastic Gulp. It doesn't work like real Gulp. That's all I'm gonna say. I don't wanna badmouth it, but it doesn't work like real Gulp. But I did something years ago. I had a family from Wisconsin who never fluke fish in their life. As a matter of fact, they never even know what the ocean looked like. I had a girl fishing next to me. Never fished in her life. I rigged her up with the bucktail with Gulp. I fished back there with the plastic, the imitation Gulp. She had 6 keepers in the boat before I had 1, and that sold me. And now, a lot of my customers, they don't want to, I don't supply the Gulp to most of my charters. Most of my customers, they bring in themselves, but I have some, and I don't know everybody, some are more frugal than others, and they'll want to spend the money on the Gulp, and they will get shellacked on a boat from the guys that are fishing Gulp. Gulp is, whatever Berkeley puts in that bait, I get nothing from, I don't get a penny off. I'm not selling it. I don't profit from it, but if you guys want to fluke fish, Gulp is in the ocean. I'm not saying in the bay, I don't fish the bay. The ocean, Gulp is where it's at. Gulp's critical.
Did you ever try and soak the other bait in Gulp juice? It still don't work, does it?
No. And then I used to cut felt strips and soak it in the Gulp juice and put the felt strips on with the imitation Gulp, the plastic strips, and that didn't work. It's Gulp. I don't know what it is, it's Gulp. Which turns in, at the end of the day, guys, you get on a bad patch. I get on a bad patch. My record 17, one guy lost 17 bucktails in one trip. 17 bucktails in one trip. That's 8 packs, 9 packs of Gulp fishing a high hook on top of the bucktails. So it's an investment. At the end of the day, it's a big investment. It teaches you how to learn. Keep your bucktail swimming. Don't drag it. If you drag it, I always keep some of the bucktails after the end of the day. Guys leave them on the boat, they're chipped, they're this and that, the hook is bent. I keep them in my cup holder, and you snag 4 times in a row, and you bring in your line, and I'm tying you on. I'm like, I'm saving the time. I just throw the bucktail over. I said, why you even tied a knot? You're gonna lose it anyhow. You know, I just play that game, but you have to keep that bucktail swimming. You have to keep hunting. You gotta hunt. If their fish ain't in this spot, they're in that spot. If they're not in that spot, they're in that spot. Keep trying. Pay attention. Pay attention to conditions. Conditions are critical. Why are these fish biting today? What's different? My tide, moon phase, wind direction, and put it together and keep track.
If you're putting a long strip on top of a bucktail,
On top of the bucktail.
does that affect the action? Would you flip the tail over so it's like normally if the hook's like this, I'll put the bucktail like that.
So,
Would you flip it or does it
no,
matter?
because the eye of the hook comes through the top of the bucktail or from the eye, so you can't, I guess you can make a...
I just mean where the curly tail goes. Does it go?
Oh,
does it go
as
in?
far as hooking the Gulp.
Yeah.
No, I just try to thread it on, so it's, I'm not worried which direction the tail is. It's a very good question. I'm not worried about which direction the tail goes on the Gulp. I'm just as long as the head of that Gulp is straight on the hook. I don't want it bunched up.
Okay, so the strip doesn't really affect its action. Right?
I don't find it does.
Okay.
I think it's all about the scent of the fresh bucktail and the scent of the strip. That big fluke, you know, a big fluke, you can stick a beer can in a big fluke's mouth and not touch the sides. They're looking to eat. So big fish, not that elephants don't eat peanuts like they say, right? And I hate that expression. But I like a big piece of bait, and number one, it keeps me from catching shorts. There's nothing wrong with catching shorts, but if I'm catching shorts, I'm not on the bottom. I don't have a chance at a big fish. I want bottom time, right? So I don't want to catch shorts. I'm here to look for a target of big fish.
How far off the bottom do you keep your bucktail?
I like to tick it, like to swim and tick it. I'll lift it about, I'm gonna say 3 feet. I throw it in there, cast it, 3 feet, 3 feet, 3 feet. Sometimes not even. Sometimes you can do 6 and 8 inch hops. Sometimes they don't want the bucktail. Sometimes they're going after the top hook. They like the top hook. But you're working it. You can't drag it. If you're dragging it, you're setting yourself up for failure and frustration and expense by dragging. It's very gratifying when it works, and it's very frustrating when it doesn't work. Guys get, every year, I think I know all the curse words in the English language. I know I'm gonna find 15 more this year on the book. That just happened.
How about live bait?
Live bait out there, I said early on about the sabiki rigs,
Yeah.
sand porgies.
Where would you put them on the top?
Yeah, how would you cook them?
Who's ever up, whatever they need, could be top hook, could be the bucktail. Whatever I catch on a sabiki rig on that structure, I'm putting on somebody's hook.
And you would put it on bucktail?
I'd put it on the bucktail, hook them right through the eyes and drop them straight down. Pay attention when you come in and you're filleting your catch. It's very important to pay attention to see what's in those fishes, what's in their bellies. You're gonna be surprised. They have ling, they have eels, they have the baby bluefish. Out back, out in the ocean out front, I don't do well with killies. That's a river bait and a bay bait. I don't do well in the deep with killies. I don't do well with peanut bunker, live. Dead peanut bunker, different story. Regular bunker, we all fish live bait, we're fishing bunker for striped bass. What about taking a tank full of bunker out fishing, fillet them? You're only gonna get one drift, maybe not out of a bunker, they're soft. But boy, the fluke like a bunker strip. They do like a bunker strip.
Sandy.
Something I never tried and always wondered about. A lot of times you're cutting the fluke open and checking his belly and finding all little crabs. I always wanted to try green crabs with fluke, but never did. Have you ever tried crabs?
I've tried them, I've never caught them. I've tried the Gulp. Gulp makes a crab imitation, that's really good. Doesn't work for me. I don't know if it's because we can't imitate the way the crab walks on the bottom. Ours looks fake when we're dragging or it's on a bucktail. That bait doesn't work for me. You mentioned sand eels. That's terrific. Squid strips, terrific. But everything and their uncle eats them.
The
Everything.
year before last, we were out there on Long Island, we were killing them with the sandy hooks.
Gulp.
Yeah, last year,
Yeah.
nothing with them. It's like, it changes every year.
Every year the fish know they got to get us to spend our money in a different way every year. That's just
They got stock.
That's just how it is. I mean, look at everyone paying attention how they change the laws in Jersey. I'm from New Jersey. Now we're over 18 inches on fluke this year finally. Last year 17 to 17.99. We couldn't find any 17 to 17.99s. Watch how many are out there this year. We're not going to be able to keep them. I guarantee it.
You mentioned peanut butter, not live in the ocean. Dead in the ocean?
Dead.
Okay, wait, you mentioned strips too, but big.
So what I'll do with the peanut bunker is I'll fillet half of it. I'll take half of it and throw it away. And then I'll stick the one that I just cut with the guts and the spine in it, I'll put it on the hook with that scent.
Isn't it a little, 2 inches?
Well, they're 4 or 5 inches. 2 inches are gonna fall through my net. I can't get, you know.
We get them and we do it all the time, so it's like.
Yeah, try the peanut bunker, but cut them.
How do you hook them?
I got a question in the back. I'll get back.
Have you ever used freshwater herring?
When I was young and I had money in my pocket. I can't. I know, but freshwater herring's $12, $13 a dozen. They don't, I don't find they outproduce the bluefish, although we're only allowed like 5 snappers a piece now on the boat. But yeah, legal wise, that's the limit. But the freshwater herring work really well, 100%. Your question with
How
the,
do you hook the peanut bunker?
through the eyes or through their lips, from the bottom up. Everything I try hooking on the bottom is I want the bend of the hook up. I don't want that hook facing down. It only gives you a little more chance to stick something on the bottom. A piece of old fishing line, mussel bed, edge of a rock, I want that hook up. You're still gonna stick it, but it won't be as frequent as if the hook is down. Even with the strip, I want that hook, want the bend and the point facing up with that.
What about cadence or speed when you're jigging?
Figure it out. I got guys that are very methodical, and they do well, and then the guy in the back of the boat, he shakes it like he's ill, and they clobber him too. Some days, when you have days like that, and there's no pattern, you're blessed to be on the water. When it's like that. There's days when you can go fast, you can go slow, you can go high, and the fish they're not gonna bite. They're just not gonna bite. Doesn't happen often, but it happens enough.
Think there's that much difference between, it's faster moving, do you think fluoro or mono makes a difference?
For fishing a structure, unless you wanna make a donation all day long, you should be fishing fluorocarbon leader out there. If you were dragging the sand, get away with mono. But fishing the structure, even the mussel shells, they're they're sharp. And with the fluorocarbon, you'll have a lot more abrasion resistance on your bucktail. Because you might be checking every 3 or 4 drifts, making sure your leader's good. And then the next drift, you didn't check and you nick it. Now you hang a big fish, and now your line snaps. So you have to stay attuned to that, but I recommend fluorocarbon.
Braid and leader test, what are you, kind of your go-to?
My customers' rods are 20 pound and 40 pound braid. If we get ultra clear water, I'll drop down the leader size from 40 to 30. And that 30 is the lowest I'll go. And that's if we get ultra clear. We do have days where some of the areas on the shallow side, 45, 52 feet, if we're fishing, you can see your bucktail on the bottom. You can pick it up and see it down there. But when the water's super clear, and when the water's also super clear, I find it very, very slow fishing. Very tough. It's just like super clear water is not good. There's like no food in it, no plankton, no bait life. A fresh patch of water is no good like that. That green water is healthy ocean water. The water runs out of the bay, comes out of Jamaica Bay, comes out of Raritan Bay, comes down the Hudson River. That's all good water.
So,
Yeah.
do you think that heavy rains, if water running into the ocean, affects the salinity and the fish bite?
I believe it does on the inshore grounds and on an outgoing tide on a Jersey coast on an outgoing tide. If we get a heavy rain, that's my mind's made up. I got to go east. I need incoming water, and I got to go east because that ocean water, the fresh water, the salinity is going to be the same, and it's not going to be dirty. If I got to go 25 miles, I'll go 25 miles. I'm staying in fresh ocean water. I'm not fishing that dirty runoff water. I hate the outgoing tide at the Hudson River. I hate that outgoing water, that milky, stinky. I hate it. I don't like it. I won't fish it. I'll run. I don't care. I got the speed and I'll run. I have no patience to deal with that. If I'm not going to catch it, guys, we're going down swinging. We're gonna try. We'll pull out the bags. But fresh bait's critical. Structure is critical, and pay attention. If you do anything, pay attention to conditions, wind direction, and tide.
Do you ever use a trolling motor when
No.
tractors aren't in your,
No, I have twins. I'll work my motors, but most of the guys will be able to find a spot. I got a 32 open, and they find a spot on the boat that they could cast without tangling each other. Power drifting, 4 or 5 guys is out of the question, but I'll get 2 or 3 guys when I pull into a spot to throw their line out, and they'll catch the skid till the boat stops, which sometimes takes, it adds a few fish when I don't have perfect drifting conditions. So I make sure you catch the skid with the boat. There was a question.
Yeah, how often do you change out your, recycle your, Gulp?
Every drift. That's a great question. Every drift, the Gulp goes back in a bucket and a new piece of Gulp goes on. Recharge it. And some drifts might be longer than others. Most drifts, I like to fish small spots and not big spots. Most spots, if you're not ready to drop when I get on a drift, 3 guys are in the water, 2 guys are finishing their coffee. Don't even drop. We're done. We got to go back. We got to redrift it. It's that fast.
That goal, or I've always rubber,
My one customer, God bless this guy Zeppi, he owns the bow in my boat with fishing. He fishes the Gulp until it's this big. He's a believer. I'm not putting on another Gulp. And he catches his fair share. 18 years, he's only got like 2 double-digit fish. He just don't want to spend the money, you know. The squid, you ever see when the squid are on the reef, how they attack it, the bites they put on it? They'll lead it off the hook. The trigger fish will lead it off the hook. If he's got a piece like this, blackfishing, if he's got an elbow of the green crab this big on his hook, until that blackfish eats it, he's fishing. He don't care. So I don't agree with that thinking, and I don't recommend it for my customers, but it works for him.
Is that the same for fresh bait then? How often you change that before you?
Fresh baits, every drift.
Every drift, every piece.
Yeah, because you'll see, especially say a bunker strip, a mackerel strip, a bluefish strip, they're not durable at all. They'll start tangling, they'll start shredding. You're gonna get a bite and it's gonna pull some of the flesh off. It'll start spinning. So fresh bait. And when I cut fresh bait, I don't cut a bluefish out of the cooler or a mackerel out of the cooler. As cruel as it seems, When I get something on the boat, I grab its head and I'm filleting it. I want that fillet to bleed. Same with the fluke. If I'm gonna use a fluke belly, I don't save them from the table the night before or the ribbons. I grab the fluke, I hold it, I fillet it. I take the fillet off the fish. It's bleeding. I want it fresh. If not, I could have used frozen meat.
Did I understand you to say you only use white bucktails?
Me. I only use white. That's the only bucktail I put on. If Erwin is fishing, bet your house, he's got a white bucktail on it. Now I got two styles. I have a Spro, I make them myself. I have a Spro knockoff, and I only started making them myself because of the price, because the price is very, so for 65 cents and a little lead and powder coat, it turned into a big operation with me. All my customers buy, but I'm a Spro knockoff guy, and I like a round head. I fished the Spro with the bucktail, a real bucktail, not a rubber skirt, a bucktail. I fish my round head naked. I don't want nothing on it other than a gulp and a piece of squid. You could hold a fresh strip, it could be a piece of squid, but a fresh strip. You could hold a 2-ounce round head cannonball where it might take a 3 or 3.5 ounce Spro jig. You can hold with the 2-ounce cannonball, you can't hold with the Spro jig. It's a different profile, and you got the bucktail on it, and it's a little more draggy. So if we have a real super fast drift to stay with a smaller profile bait, you could use it. We'll switch over to a cannonball, and I make them in all different colors too, depending on what my guys want. But for me, white always works. I don't need a cloudy day, a sunny day. White's my color. That's my go-to color.
I've had good luck with those balls, cannonball. They're a lot cheaper than them.
They're a lot cheaper.
You notice any difference in?
The one with the hook coming out of the leg, or it has like a?
I don't like to swing. I tried to swing hooks years ago when it first came out. I think Sea Frog. I can't name the company, but I'm going back to 2010. Back then, they came with these swing hooks. We lost a tremendous amount. Exactly what I thought wasn't going to happen happened with the swing hooks. So I stay away from the swing hooks. I think with the swing hooks, with the fluke with its head shaking so hard, he's able to throw that lead head back and forth, and it ends up pulling the hook out. So I stay away from the swing hooks.
And naked means no feathers?
No feathers, nothing, just a round head.
Okay.
I have it on my PowerPoint presentation. I got pictures of all of them.
You're gonna post that anyway?
I don't know if there's a computer back. I'm at the Shimano booth. If anybody wants to come, I might be able to plug it in and show you at the Shimano booth. I told you about the sabiki rig. I told you about the egg sinker. I mentioned to you before about setting a hook on a fluke, how hard you got to swing. With that, try taking a hook and sticking it in there. That's just holding it, doing it. Go to the back of the room. You stick the hook in its mouth and have somebody come over here with the fishing pole and try to set the hook. And now you're going to see how hard you got to swing to bury that hook. Yeah, rip its lips off. Rip its lips off. I want to see that fish come flying out of the water. Go ahead.
I've not had much luck with like 8-ounce bucktails. Is there any key to the heavier bucktails, or when would you switch to a sinker, or you wouldn't switch to a sinker?
I would
Hooks?
line up the 8 sinkers on a 4-ounce if I got to fish an 8-ounce bucktail. Line it up on a 4-ounce bucktail head. And now you got 8 ounces in your holding. But you got that 4-ounce profile.
You'd put 2 2-ounce sinkers on?
I could,
Yeah.
or I could put 4 1-ounce sinkers,
Okay. Yeah.
you know?
If you put a little bead between the bucktail and the egg sinker, does that help protect the
It'll
knot?
definitely cushion, the egg sinker's not gonna rub against the knot, and it's certainly not gonna crush the leader around the eye of the hook. That definitely wouldn't hurt you.
We all get snagged. What's your best method of getting out of a snag?
That's another, believe it or not, that's another good reason to fish this way instead of down drift. So now I cast out there, now I'm snagged. All I gotta do is wait a little, and we're gonna drift over it. And I might be able to get it out when I'm on top of it, or now I get past it. Now I might be able to get it out. However, if it doesn't come out, what? You gotta watch, the braid will cut you. You know, everybody knows how bad the braid is, but you can snap your rod, because now you're underneath the boat. If that line doesn't break, you're gonna snap your rod. So I don't wanna see you getting cut, and I certainly don't wanna see you snap a rod for a $6 bucktail. So, yes, sir.
I came in late, but, when you say jigging, would you prefer the schooner method or?
I know, I see his videos, but I don't know, I'm not familiar with his techniques as far as fishing. Shake it?
Yeah, shake it, or is it more of a?
So I find if you're shaking it, you're gonna catch more on the high hook than you're gonna catch on a bucktail. That high hook is where all the action is when you shake it.
Okay.
But I'm not sure the big fish, the big fish are that aggressive to go after a bait like that. They're more lazy.
So the more of the gradual.
That thump, to drop it down, the top hook goes like this. The top hook could be anywhere from, say, 4 to 6 or 8 inches off my main line. So it's just lazy. And that's what I like it.
You ever try with a slow pitch rod or a little?
No. I'm fishing all fast or super fast Loomis and Shimano rods. I'm not into the slow pitch rod. I'm not into the spiral wrap rod, although a lot of guys use them. There's so many different techniques. This is just Erwin's way. I'm not as flexible as I was 20 years ago. I'm set in my ways, and I'm gonna finish like this in my ways. I'm not gonna change much. It works for me, it works for my customers. So I'm open to hear and always open to learn. I'm pretty happy with the way things are going, the way I approach my fluke day.
How high above the bucktail do you put the other hook?
18 inches on an average, 16 to 20, 24, if the water's clear.
How long is your line, leader line?
3 to 4 feet. And I don't use any barrel swivels. I tie the leader, I have no hardware. I tie the leader right to my braid. Just faster, it's easier. No matter, I can say whatever I want, don't reel the barrel swivel through my guides of the rod. Some of the people, the knot's a lot more civil on my guides than a barrel swivel. So, a uni, all bright, not blood knot. It's always different. My mate, I like to screw with him because, you know, today we're tying this, and tomorrow he thinks we're gonna tie that we used yesterday, and today I'm tying a different knot. So we use them all, as long as it don't slip. I don't care what kind of knot you use, as long as it don't slip. It works. But there's no sense in you don't need a 5 or 6 or 10-foot piece of leader. You don't need a top shot. The fluorocarbon's expensive enough. The fish ain't the, you think the fish is looking up further than this? 3 or 4 feet piece of leader, for me, is more than adequate.
You said you come out around the hook, so I'm assuming you're somewhere in like Atlantic Islands or?
I'm in the Highlands. I'm in Twin Lights Marina. I'm with John, my buddy John. He runs a boat out of my same marina.
So you said you fish typically in 100 feet of water, give or take?
100 feet is deep.
So you must just, I mean, you don't bother to at least check out right by the hook, see what's going on, or?
Nope.
The Flynn's Knoll or any of that? You just
Not for fluke. If you see Erwin fluking on Flynn's Knoll or somewhere like that, he's broke down. I'm going. I'm running. I want to.
Like Scotland grounds and all that, or that's 100?
I'll fish Scotland in the fall when the fish push out of the bay, but that's not one of my go-to spots. It's everybody fishes it. I'm off the beaten path.
You're going up Long Island?
I'll fish Long Island. I'll fish some areas in a mud hole. I'll fish south of 17, Klondike, out that way. We're fishing little pieces, just little pieces, some wrecks, some rocks. And I do fish some generic spots. Sandy Hook Reef at times can be really good. Shrewsbury Rocks at times can be on fire. although it's a tough spot to fish if you don't have the right conditions, snag-wise. Verrazano, the Verrazano is a tremendous spot to fish. The mussel beds, it's probably the premier, I probably have more big fluke there than any spot on the coast. The harbor's terrific. It's a pain in the ass with all the boat traffic. And conditions, if they're not right, you can't get a good drift, the boat spins in New York Harbor. But as far as bay fishing or the towers, they catch a lot of fish off the towers. Flynn's Knoll, Romer Shoal in that area, Capitol Hill Channel along the edges, they catch fish. Just not for me. Just not for me. Again, everybody, thank you for the questions and the were excellent. If you want to get into a little further, if you want to learn about the assist hook or whatever, I'm in the Shimano booth. I'll be glad to show you. I show you the rods. I show you how I tie that knot. That's it. Sabiki rig. Try it. It's cost you $1. You'd be surprised what's living down there.
What do you tip it with?
No, I don't put anything on it. Just whatever it is, just enough to hold it down.
No, I mean, seriously.
I don't put no bait on the Sabiki.
Thank you.
It's right out here by the main gate, the big Shimano.
Does that go this way?